shoes. Hey, I've got no, not this way. I've got Rosemary. I've got David. Yay! That makes me lucky. Which of you would like to introduce yourselves first?
By all means, go for it.
Okay, I'm Rosemary. I am an SE novice. I definitely enjoy having conversations, and I'm very glad Dali invited me to be here.
Indeed. I'm very glad I invited you to be here too. David?
By my third stream, I must be an SE master or something. Is there a badge we can get? The little things that we can sew on?
Yeah, I think we'll have to check off with the home office in Wichita. They're usually the ones that send out the gift cards for becoming atheists. But I think they have something for you. I'm not sure.
On that point, before I might as well say. So I write books on logical fallacies called Fantastic Fallacies and Where to Find Them, and Fantastic Fallacies and Brilliant Biases. And I would love to know where, Dali, can people find the Street Epistemology T-shirt behind you?
Oh, okay. Fill time. Yes. I'm going to the Street Epistemology website. Let me share what I'm doing. Chrome tab. Okay. So I go to the Street Epistemology website, and where do I find it? Is it resources? Is it merchandise? Goes to Evolve Fish. But it's not
okay.
It's not switching on your screen. That's weird. Do you see the Evolve Fish?
Yeah, you have to share a specific tab, don't you? Or you can choose
it did a different tab. So yes, let me fix
entire
that.
Desktop, yes.
Yep, it fooled me. There it is. So here's the Evolve Fish thing. I will drop a copy to that link to. There it goes. People can have that. They can get those T-shirts. I've purchased maybe 3 of what I have now is like a dozen. And Anthony, on 2 separate occasions, has been generous, and especially the last time he was in Los Angeles, dropped me 4 new T-shirts because they had new colors. So I got like this really nice textured red and the plain red and stuff like that. So I've been blessed by lots of T-shirts.
Our Lord and Savior.
Yes, indeed. I tend to. I'm kind of a little autistic, maybe, and so putting on a T-shirt, a Street Epistemology T-shirt, for me is putting on a uniform, and it reminds me to go into the right mode. So, if, like, for example, if I'm on Discord and I'm actually being asked to argue a position, I'll take my SE T-shirt off.
Does that mean Dali has a combat mode where you just put your sort of fingerless gloves on and you're just like, you're ready?
Yeah. My combat mode probably looks like most people's Street Epistemology mode. My arguing is very nuanced.
You talk someone out of conflict.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yes, not very heavy metal flaming skulls of death, though. Yes, I agree. If somebody would want heavy metal flaming skulls of death Street Epistemology merchandise, hey, let's talk. We can make some off the label stuff, some unofficial awesome stuff. We would know. Good morning, Morgan.
We excel at good questions.
Yes.
At least we should.
Yes, a meme is coming to mind, and I'm not going to bring it up. Okay. Something about Excel thinking things are dates when they're not.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Drives me
Strong
crazy.
Yes, indeed. So, if you'd like to come in and bring a claim, or you'd like to do interviewing, or all the kinds of things that we do here, we could talk about street epistemology. As long as there's some kind of epistemological something, we would love to have you join us on the panel. While we wait for someone to join us, let's see. It's evening for, yes, you're right. It's evening somewhere. No doubt about it. We are talking to all the time zones. Even the ones that start in half hours and 15 minutes and oh man, I don't know who would ever decide to make a time zone like across the center of Australia that is not on the hour. I mean, come on. Who was in that meeting? So, David or Rosemary, do you have any topics that you would like to talk about while we wait for someone to gird their loins and be prepared to show up on video and talk to us?
Sure, I could talk about what I mentioned earlier from my continuing legal education yesterday. So I just found it very interesting and learned a lot. So as I had shared with Dali before we got on, it really cracked me up because the doctor, before he began to tell a room of lawyers how addiction works and how treatment works, he's like, don't come at me unless you have data, because I'm using data. I don't want your anecdotes about your friend who XYZ. That kind of cracked me up, especially since lawyers are very argumentative. So yeah, it was interesting insights that I got out of that.
Do I have the correct, is this the one that you're referencing?
No, this is the student.
Grab the other one.
No, it's not on any of those.
It's not on any of those. I'm not going to grab anything. You talk.
Yeah. So yeah, I just have my notes that I took. But yeah, it was very interesting learning about the science of how addiction works, because I didn't really know a lot about it, even though I've worked on stuff that has to do with that. I don't really do anything with that in my work right now. But and then so he started with, there was a Venn diagram of the three things we need for survival. He's like, obviously you need like air and skin, but with like, just for the sake of argument, he had food, water, and dopamine, and that dopamine means motivation to go and get things like food and water. So that was kind of an interesting way to start it.
Yeah, lifting dopamine up to food and water level of relevance or importance, that's powerful.
Yeah. Because the release of dopamine is important to motivate you to go do the things that you need to do. And the effects of drugs is to basically take your dopamine out of the normal range, and that causes your brain to start making less of its own dopamine, which is what causes the addiction. And the other really interesting thing that he talked about, and of course somebody got kind of like, wait, what are you talking about? Is that who abstinence only types of treatment, like the AA, like any of those anonymous ones, like who that works best for versus the people who are more likely to need some sort of pharmaceutical treatment. And of course, he was also really pushing the idea we don't need to stigmatize. It's just like if you have to take metformin or insulin for your diabetes, you're taking care of something that your body's not doing correctly. But yeah, so he was like, the doctors, lawyers, and pilots, that's who AA started with. And he talked about a little bit about like why those early studies are somewhat flawed, because it's all self-reporting. You're not actually testing people. But if you go by their behaviors and their behaviors improving over time, it works. And like, also, like, you don't necessarily want your pilots to be taking things like methadone that can impair their flying. So abstinence is a better treatment given their job. But then one of the things I thought was very interesting, and I don't know what his data was, but the data shows that people who have early childhood trauma, which causes them to start drugs early, they're the ones that have the harder time with abstinence-only education or abstinence-only treatment. And that the people who are more likely to be in professional degrees are less likely to have that trauma, or more likely to have started taking drugs later in life. So like their brains are not as hooked because they're just seeking the pleasure. They're not just whereas people who have had trauma, a lot of times it's pleasure and validation. They're seeking, so it has an attachment to the drug. So I thought that was all really very fascinating.
Validation. How does taking a substance validate?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I guess just that it makes, like, if you're trying to, escape trauma,
Mm-hmm.
that might be why you're feeling so, like, it's an attachment. It's like a way to escape that trauma, to feel better.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a friend who recently realized their drinking was out of control and kind of pulled a cold turkey and support from family to make it work, kind of thing. And they said the big part of it was now they had a lot to process and they didn't have a way to avoid processing.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. That was alcohol. I guess we're talking about alcohol, but we're also talking about addictive everythings.
Yeah, addictive everything, because we're looking at all forms of addiction in that talk, but there's differences between alcohol, like that's a little bit harder to treat pharmaceutically. Like there's not really good pharmaceutical treatments for that. There was something I was thinking before, but it takes 12 months to lose the craving. So like the timeline, once you get past 12 months, your cravings go down. Once you get past 18 to 24 months, your brain begins to heal from opioid abuse. But I don't think this is the same for alcohol. I think alcohol has longer lasting effects on the body.
Okay.
There was some interesting.
If I take the abstinence only kind of education, am I more likely to get someone pregnant? Oh, sorry, that's different.
Yeah, that's a different one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny how that doesn't work. Yeah, so it's like it's very specific when that abstinence treatment is better or is an effective treatment. Not necessarily better treatment, but is more effective, we should say. And it's not about being better, it's about what's effective to help.
Doorknob had bring some data that relating to an earlier claim that your cat is welcome on screen. That's good.
Yeah, I think he's gonna keep jumping up here.
It's all good for me. Pets are so welcome in this show.
I have a
Yes,
question for everybody. This is something I've been thinking about, and I'll need some feedback on. How do we get people to be as addicted and dependent on critical thinking as alcohol?
Ooh, that's a good one.
How do we do that? Would we want to do that?
Do we want to do it in the first place? And I would argue yes. That maybe that's me making a claim, and then
it's all about getting them to release the dopamine. Get them to release the dopamine.
Okay.
From the critical thinking exercise. So if they're making that dopamine, they're going to want to keep coming back to it.
Okay.
I don't know how to do that, but that would make it addictive.
Yeah. I have my own response to that, but I want to hear what Dali has to say.
Oh, how we would make it work. Well, I think that the process of critical thinking and getting the aha after aporia is personally very rewarding to me. It does get my dopamine going when I myself change my mind about a thing, when I learn a new thing, when I observe someone else to have the aporia to reconsider their position. I don't find it matters very much whether they move toward my position or not. It's just whether they come to a new conclusion. Another example that I saw in a Navigating with Nate recent video was someone, I don't think they changed their mind at all, but they seemed to gain the ability to steelman the opposition's position. And I think just understanding the arguments of the other side of any particular issue is is in itself an exercise in critical thinking worthwhile by itself, independent of whether you ever change your mind about the subject. Just knowing both sides is that kind of dopamine hit. Now, the downside is, what if you get a lot of negative social feedback for engaging in these things? If some of the time these things devolve into a dumpster fire kind of argument, that would cause someone fear, maybe, in terms of actually doing it, and that would prevent them from engaging in a. I mean, obviously, there's gobs and gobs of social situations where doing SE or critical thinking is an unwelcome thing. Do not do it at a wedding, not even at the reception. Stuff like that. There's lots of places, and so if you get the social pushback, if you get the negativity of being told no, you shouldn't this, that would get in the way of you making a habit of critical thinking to the effect, maybe with the goal, I'm not sure, but at least to the effect of getting a big dopamine hit from it. Oh, and watching Pine Creek.
Yes. I was thinking about Pine Creek yesterday during the CLE. I'm like, oh, the dopamine hits.
Mm-hmm. Yep. James says you should replace the God addiction with critical thinking addiction. Yeah, I think that's healthy. And I'm not sure you have to even get rid of the God addiction. I'm all in favor of people who believe in God taking up SE, and I don't have a need for them to drop the God thing. I know. Yeah.
My family is full of scientists who believe in God. So, yeah. Lots of very smart people.
Mm-hmm. Somebody calls Pine Creek 1010. I like Pine Creek. I like 1010. I believe you. Thomas has a claim, but is not sure they've thought it out enough to be a good interlocutor. Well, we can try.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. We're gentle.
Yeah.
We're the easy ones. This is easy mode.
Yes. These two are.
When I talk through things, I get them to make sense.
Yeah.
So
okay,
there's no reason to have it thought through.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying there's no reason to have it thought through because somebody has to verbalize to make things make sense.
Mm-hmm. The flying man increases my dopamine. Yes, he flew for your dopamine. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Numbers give me dopamine.
Yeah. So Thomas, might you type out what your claim would be were you choosing to do it? Because we could always argue with you and tell you you're wrong before you even show up. People are motivated by positive social rewards. Make it cool to think. Okay, so Chase is saying that we should applaud and socially reward people when they do critical thinking. Agreed. Yeah, Gina thinks that that David is not nearly as challenging and pugilistic as he thinks he is.
I'm the most humble person that you've ever. That's the Donald Trump line, isn't it? When he was in that interview with Mike Pence.
Yeah, I think I heard that. That. I'm thinking of Weird Al singing Amish Paradise. 1,000 times more humble than thou art. Hello, Thomas.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. So, yeah.
Go ahead. What do you bring?
So, my claim would be that without a certain amount of socialism, that capitalism is simply another form of maybe slavery light. So, however that could be worded, perhaps narrowed down to housing and healthcare, I suppose.
Okay, so the summary would be: without some socialism, capitalism is slavery light.
Yes.
Good. Okay. David, Rosemary, and
David.
actually, Thomas, you can choose. Would
Yeah,
you want to point at one of us and say, you do the questioning?
Oh, boy. Dealer's choice, I would say.
Okay. David, Rosemary?
Yeah, I'm only mildly more experienced than Rosemary, but I can definitely take the wheel if you wish. I do have
Yeah,
a
go ahead. Yeah,
Rosemary or
relatively-
me, hit me up in the private chat if you want back on. I'm going to give
All right,
you
thank
20, 25 minutes.
Sure thing. Let's get that screen up. Marvelous. What was your name again? Sorry, Thomas.
Tom.
Tom. I'm Dave. Hello.
Hi,
So,
Dave.
have you had any such conversations like this before?
Not really. No, I'm a fan of SE, but I haven't practiced it much.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So I'm exploring a new idea within SE, and hopefully I just get torn apart because then I can learn something. So, Dali's already telling me I've got 24 minutes remaining. We've only just started. Come on. Throwing that into the live chat. Right. So the claim is slavery, capitalism is slavery light without socialism.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would even maybe narrow that down to without guaranteed housing and
Hello,
sorry.
Phil.
Without guaranteed housing and guaranteed health care, that capitalism is slavery light.
Okay. Marvelous. Now, what every street epistemologist does at this point is to ask for your confidence level in the claim.
Mm-hmm.
So on a scale of 1 to 100, where 1 is you almost don't believe it, but you do, and 100 is this is absolute fact. This is 2 + 2 = 4.
I would say, I mean, I've thought it out, and I'm open to new information, but I'd say 87.
87. Very specific number.
I can't go as high as 90, but 85 seems too low.
These are arbitrary measures, so it's very interesting as to why you would, specifically say 87. That's all. No worries. One question I've started to ask, and I asked this in a previous stream: what is your knowledge level on the topic?
As far as like
on the topic as well,
say,
not every single piece of information that's out there.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, it's a very complex issue, but I think my confidence is based more on human needs and how a society should take care of its citizenry. So as far as like economics, 0. I'm not educated in sociology or government or economics, other than just a basic knowledge that I've accrued through 51 years of living.
Okay, so that's interesting. So we have as far as I'm aware, we have a degree of confidence because we have at least some knowledge. So if there's maybe that's my claim, but if somebody knows absolutely nothing, just pick any topic whatsoever. Mine would probably be something like astrophysics or whatever. My confidence level is 0. It's absolute 0. I wouldn't even know my first sentence. So to me, if somebody's got a confidence level, they must have at least some degree of knowledge. So if maybe I ask the question in a different way, because maybe how confident would you be on the same scale to teach somebody else what you know?
I would, I mean, honestly, you said, sort of confidence equal, like, is it 2 + 2 = 4 sort of thing? It seems, in my mind, a simple math of humans need shelter to thrive, and they also need adequate health care to thrive. In this, we're talking present day, we're talking really at any time. Based on those two things, and based on the obvious fact that not everyone is able to be successful in, let's say, the American capitalist society, enough to be housed and adequately taken care of, perhaps, that those people are going to continuously be in a cycle that they cannot overcome for one reason or another. And if those people aren't, if their needs aren't adequately met, then it's a Sisyphean task, perhaps.
So
I don't know if that clears anything up.
I think, so you're referring to Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain and it inevitably rolling back down again.
Yeah, and perhaps that's a bad analogy, just as far as like economics are concerned. But if you're going to have a requirement that certain human needs are met only by a sort of participating in an economic system, then it would amount to slavery light if that economic system doesn't include everyone.
Okay, so I've probably exhausted that part of the clarification. I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same, using the same definitions of words. So we're trying to use your definitions. I don't want to assume something just because I think capitalism is X and you think it's Y. So what would you define slavery light to mean within this context?
Well, that one has no other choice but to participate in the economic system if one wants their needs to be met, which may be impossible for some people.
Very
or
occasionally,
at least
I might make
the
notes, by the way.
trade-offs
So,
don't.
yeah.
Obviously, there's the working poor and so forth. I don't know if that answers it.
I guess so. So slavery to me brings up ideas that doesn't necessarily have to be shackles and chains, but there is a degree of a lack of autonomy for the individual to choose. Is that a good way of generally phrasing it?
I think so. And yeah, it certainly would limit your choices. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so can I then say it is, in your belief, socialism within this the context of the claim that adds that choice where capitalism does not give it? Is that the specific?
Well, yes, I would say once you introduce. Okay, so I suppose another claim that this sort of rests on is that humans need shelter to live. I mean, certainly you could move to Florida and perhaps live in on the streets, and I'm sure people do. California, same thing. So we are sort of assuming that, or at least I am.
Okay, so if this was a different claim, I would at this point be asking things like, where does this idea come from? Do you have a particular experience that you've had that you desperately don't want other people to have? Have you known somebody else that's gone through a particular thing and you're like, oh, I can see that, I can empathize with it and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I've spent some time being homeless back in the 90s when I was much younger and more able to travel around and hitchhike and things like that. Also, it just, being in any city in the country, it doesn't take my experience to see that there are a lot of unhoused people. And probably many of those people, probably not even probably, but would like to be housed.
So the question is, if the claim is capitalism is slavery light without socialism, then the claim would be that socialist add-ons to a capitalist system provides the homeless that you speak of with these choices and these opportunities to then become housed. Is
that guaranteeing the right to be housed and guaranteeing health care would allow since these are very basic human needs, it would allow a platform for them to at least switch their focus from basic survival day to day to, okay, we're safe, we're in a house, we're taken care of. Now, where does my life want to go from here? I think it's even would even be beneficial to the capitalist system to ultimately do that. I think more people would be creative and would be able to function a lot better with just those basic needs being met.
So a very interesting question is, how do we define or determine what is an essential need for humans?
Good question. That sort of is, I think, where the remainder of the 87 rests on. That I don't claim to know for a fact what humans quote unquote need, but based on what I was taught in school, there's the hierarchy of needs. I'm sure it's been updated since I was in school.
Maslow's. Are you referring to Maslow's hierarchy?
I believe so, yes. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm basing it on. I know that being homeless for the period of time I was, that it didn't kill me. I'm, now, living a completely different life. And so, I do have some doubts about that, but I'm still at 87.
I'm just going to quickly set myself a 6-minute alarm so I can get to and make sure I don't miss what I want to definitely talk about. I'll give myself 6 minutes to sort of continue with this line of thinking. So what is it that needs to be done in your let me rephrase that. We have determined to an extent what would increase your level of confidence. So what would lower your level of confidence in the claim?
That's I'm not sure, to be honest. I'd welcome anything that did. I mean, it's not a fun claim to hold, to be honest. It's not flattering to maybe certain governments and societies, and it certainly does have some sort of survivor's guilt, I suppose, to some extent, for me. But I'm not sure what would lower my confidence.
Okay, so if for example, if the claim is, let's get the exact line up again. How do we get people to value? That's not the capitalism is slavery like without socialism. Sorry, there we go. If it could be shown to you that capitalism can provide those choices that you speak of that are so important without those socialist bolt-ons, would that lower your confidence?
I suppose so. If there was some mode or function of capitalism that was not completely self-serving and offered opportunities to absolutely everyone, no matter of social status or mental health, then yeah, that would change. But that almost seems like socialism under, what capitalism could do, sort of what, what I'm saying? Socialism under a different name that capitalism is doing. Do you see what I'm saying? That it would just change. It would change maybe the responsibility.
But I'll try and stick to the epistemology bit just for now. So are there examples of varying degrees of success, shall we say, of different systems across the world where sometimes it's worked, sometimes it's not worked, some things work differently, just depending on circumstance. It might be easier to, for example, get a developing or emerging economy to take quite a large number of people above the poverty line, because it's very easy for us to just look at the, I don't know, let's say Democratic Republic of the Congo, change their currency, set up various different energy, whatever it may be. They find it's a huge country, I think, so you could find untapped oil or whatever it is, jewels, something that they could sell, get a load of reserves of this very, very valuable thing, sell it to the West, and that would create jobs, take people above the line. But what you're saying is that's not enough. We need to take everybody above that particular line. Everyone needs to be housed. Everyone needs to have these specific basic human needs met.
Right.
And socialism is the thing that pushes it over the line, is what you're saying.
So the question, if I could restate it just to make sure I'm clear, is if I were to start an economy somewhere, that what system would prevent sort of the problems I'm talking about? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, are there examples in the real world of capitalist systems that don't have these socialist bolt-ons proving themselves to be more successful than some other economic systems?
Are there economic systems currently in place that are successful despite the problems that I see, despite slavery light, perhaps?
Something like that.
Well, like you said, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. When you look at, GDP or something like that, it doesn't really tell the story on the ground. So, I mean, I would say you could argue that the United States system is successful economically, but that it's not fulfilling its social responsibilities. There should be sort of a cost of business built in, and that cost of business is just people who aren't able to be productive, and it's humanity. We're not gonna ever not have that under it, as far as I can see, under the current system.
Okay, we've got about 3 minutes before Dali explodes, so could I very quickly share a screen? I'm just going to are you aware of the Dunning Kruger effect at all?
Remind me. Yes,
It's
yes, self-fulfilling.
It's the relationship between your confidence and your knowledge, and it's mapped out on a graph.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah,
and that's that. And I am aware that I seem to identify a problem with this, but I'm not exactly sure what the solutions would actually be or what they would look like, other than just a broad sense of, yes.
Yeah, I'm certainly not making any accusation, because every single person by definition is on the graph. So I just wanted to quickly share that particular window. Can everyone see that? I hope everyone can see it.
Yes.
Let's change the number to 87. Can you see it?
Yep.
Perfect. It's on the screen. Perfect. So if we say our level of confidence is 0, let me put this down. On the Dunning Kruger, your confidence level would be 0. If you say it's 87, it would be either there, or here. Now, let's get that exact spot. Oh, never mind. So the point is, we don't have to specifically accept the Dunning Kruger. I just want to throw this out there, and people can criticize, or maybe they can say we should have done this at the start, should do it at the end, shouldn't do it at all, whatever. But if we've defined our confidence level as up here, we are either side of the peak, which is rather unfortunately referred to as Mount Stupid, which is a very harsh thing to say. We have the Valley of Despair down here. So once we've learned something, we think we're a genius. And once we're down here, we realize we've been embarrassed and ashamed by this small piece of information that typically contradicts the emotion that took us up to here. And then a very long, arduous process of enlightenment happens until we become an expert somewhere over here. So given those numbers that you gave me, let's now change this because it now says 90 below. Let's say, actually, yeah. So let's just put it there so it's mathematically proper. I don't think these are correct. Okay. So if you were to put yourself on the Dunning Kruger, where would you put yourself?
Okay, and this is in terms of my claim.
Yes. So where,
or
in
the
terms
knowledge that my claim is based on, perhaps.
Yes, exactly. So the knowledge of the claim, capitalism is slavery light without socialism. So if you were to put yourself anywhere on this specific black line, where would you put yourself?
I would say with this claim, so I'm now sort of opening my mind up to other solutions to capitalism as slavery light. And as far as the I'm still pretty confident, but I'm more confident in capitalism as slavery light than without some socialism, capitalism is slavery light. But I would say just the whole thing, I would lower my confidence.
Okay.
Perhaps I would lower it. Gosh.
It's deliberately a very difficult question. And
Yeah.
I've already seen a comment. We'll go to the live chat in just a second, but it's of course this is meant to be a completely non-confrontational sort of conversation, and I've never done this before ever. So please feel free to just throw in some feedback into the live chat. Do you think this is effective? But if you were to, maybe I've misdrawn it.
Well,
maybe we should put 87 down here, because that's forcing you to say that you can gain knowledge. Let's put 87 there for a second. And where would your new confidence level be?
Okay, so this sort of popped up for me, that the question of how much knowledge do I need of this subject? I think the socialism part of it perhaps might be muddying it at this point. But I guess the question is, how much knowledge do I need to have about the needs of humans in order to accurately hold this claim? Or I guess
throw something out there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try and reel this off. Do you believe you have zero confidence in the claim?
No.
Right. Get rid of that. Do you believe you have this much knowledge? This is an arbitrary scale. This is, to the point where you feel like an expert. So the real question I should be asking is, do you feel like you have reached the valley? By which I mean, do you think you've had a emotional reaction, a very emotional experience by the sounds of things when you were homeless? But have you been proved wrong to the point where you just feel like an idiot down here? Not tonight, obviously. Just, yeah, whenever.
It's almost for me. It's almost I don't know what I don't know at this point. Like, because I couldn't identify like information that would knock my claim down. I really don't know of the scope of information I would need in order to make the claim. I mean, other than with, the socialism part, or perhaps even the slavery part, maybe it's a misnomer. Maybe it's more, maybe it would be accurately defined in a different way for someone who is, a sociologist or that knows all these different shades of gray. So that's sort of where I'm running into with this scale and with this question. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense, or am I dodging the question?
It's so difficult when it's put in front of you like this to say, let's say, okay, here's another question. Sorry, Dali, I can see you on the screen now, but is there, do you feel any shame if you were found to be at the top? Do you feel any social stigma in admitting that you've gone down from there to there at for any given claim? How do you feel about finding out that you're somewhere there?
I wouldn't say it would be a social stigma, but maybe more of a, I mean, I would almost have to be convinced that humans don't need as much housing and healthcare maybe that I think they do, that is commonly recognized. You know what I'm saying?
I'll throw it back out there. I'll stop sharing. And we can leave that there, and we can continue to discuss it and come back to it. I want to get some feedback from Dali, Rosemary, anyone in the live chat. What do we think?
I think it's a really interesting thing. I haven't seen that done before. Actually, laying out the Dunning Kruger and showing that line does give me the impression that we're saying that you have to traverse this line in the development of your idea. And I think that's not what Dunning Kruger says, but that's me being really pedantic. Okay, the notion is
sure.
that it would run kind of that thing.
Yeah, there's definitely the experience that I'm perhaps assuming, which is that we go through a very standard process of finding out information where those specific points are met. So we end up having no knowledge, no confidence, and then we get typically 100% confidence because we're being very emotional with a particular claim, and then that emotion is taken away by fact and reason. And I would argue that that dip is where SE street epistemology has typically thrived in lowering people's confidence, particularly on faith-based claims. Yeah, but we haven't done very much in terms of
on the downward slope of a Dunning Kruger diagram.
Yeah, and I'm very interested.
I honestly do feel less confident.
Okay, that's interesting. So you would have, I would argue, on that particular scale, that would only occur from going from the peak down. Which, yeah, I'm very happy to have feedback on the technique, feedback on the claim, any questions that people want to throw out there. Let us know.
Yeah, there were some basic questions like James asked. How could you find out other information that is different? So that would go to one of my favorites, in the question is something you don't know today. You have to come up with something unique that you don't think exists that would move you. I really love that question. If somebody's willing to go to that rather extraordinary creative effort, that turns out to be not always easy for people.
Well, and that's where I say, if I were to find out that humans, human needs were different than what I currently, think, then that would be information that would certainly move me. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We will ride our mutes when not speaking so that we don't create a loopy thing, because digitals and latencies and audio and words. All right. Oh, Bow and Arrow says some of us are at least not assholes. Thank you. Thank you for that. House of comments. I find this caller quite endearing. Good, Tom. I do too. His heart is in the right place. A little left of center on average. The solution for caring for the bottom is capitalism and Christian philanthropy. Volunteer today. Call your church and give time. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't go there, but I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
So much to my chagrin, because I'm not
the
really
socialism inherent in church-centered communities. Yeah,
that certainly historically seems to have been a somewhat of a safety net, I think, for people.
Robert asks, how confident was David that Thomas is a victim to Dunning Kruger?
I make no claim whatsoever, but if I were to make a claim, I mean, it depends on what we mean by succumb to it. I think I'm making the assumption that Dunning Kruger is true, the effect that is, and that we are all affected by it. That is probably my claim.
Even Chinese people?
Even 1.5 billion people, yeah. So
Dunning and Kruger would disagree. That's me messaging. Okay. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think I throw the idea out there because it's not. First and foremost, I myself do not know everything about Dunning Kruger, right? So it's an idea that is thrown out there. If I were to put Tom on that graph, I would say, let's share very briefly. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep,
I see it.
Perfect. If I were to make a guess, I would say out of those remaining positions, he would be there, and his confidence has gone down, so he's gone down to somewhere along here. Now, that's a complete guess. I do not know every single part of the position, but from your feedback, if that is your level of confidence and it has gone down, I wouldn't imagine it to go from here to here, because you'd have had to have lost knowledge, and to have gone from here to here, you'd have had to have lost knowledge. So the only way could be to go from there to there, given the level of confidence. Again, this is arbitrary. 87 could be down here, could probably be up here. Depends on how you measure. Is this actually 90% and above for experts, up to 99%? You could say, you could draw it in many different ways. I mean, what are people's thoughts?
I think that I think I was very clear in my mind that you were not making a claim as to where Thomas was. I think if people couldn't hear the words and you just shared that screen and that's all they do, they would assume that you thought that Thomas was in the upper left. By the way, it's an artistic choice. Whenever somebody brings up Dunning Kruger, I move them to the upper left.
And honestly, I think that's pretty accurate where you think I am on the scale. As far as with that exact claim, I would say that's pretty fair on the movement.
Can I therefore ask, it's my earpiece. I was on a stream before this, so my earpiece is dying. I will have to change it. But very quickly, in that case, if we all, or at least us two, agree to what has already been discussed concerning the effect and the graph, what would increase your level of knowledge to move you further to the right?
Probably probably reading more about the causes of homelessness, probably getting a better knowledge of sociology, and I think even political science, and perhaps even history. Yeah, I think just gathering a better knowledge of all of those would inform, perhaps would sculpt a better claim.
So in that case, can I end on a positive note, but regardless of what other people do, but end on a positive note by saying, clearly your knowledge level is greater than you thought it was. So does that make sense?
In what way?
In a way that says you're clearly, maybe I'm making the claim that says anyone who is willing to be self-reflective about a claim must, by definition, be looking into and questioning their ideas, and therefore you are looking for new information.
I'm always trying to drill down to what the truth is.
I think that's a good thing.
The poll reports that 4 out of the 11 people report being slightly or significantly moved. That is better than average. So, Thomas, score yourself as slightly better than average in persuasion.
Woohoo! It's something I've thought about for a while, and it's sort of still crystallizing these notions, but they're still beliefs in progress, I suppose.
I have a quick question for the live chat as well, before I definitely have to change this earpiece. Let me know about the technique. It's just died. Let me know about the technique, because I've obviously never done that before. Some people are saying it's too combative. I think we're having still a very lovely conversation. As long as there's no accusations. I mean, what do you think, Thomas? Not that I can hear you right now.
I would say maybe to the wrong person, it could have a little bit of me felt like, oh, here we go. But also, I mean, ultimately, I kind of welcome that, because I do want to gather more information to inform my beliefs. And so, but to the wrong person, perhaps, who's very, very confident and maybe not familiar with SE, it may come off as, but look at this graph, I don't know.
Morgan found me out. Slightly or significant move did not specify up or down. Correct. I am not asking up or down. As it turns out, the persuasion could go either way. Now, I'm going... can you hear me, David? No. Hello, asking how. All right. I will wait for David to hear me before I actually put myself in the strong upper left and talk about Dunning Kruger for a moment. We are open to. Okay, David's going to come right back. We are open to new callers. Hit the share in there. We'll pop you in, and maybe we'll throw Thomas out, or maybe he'll just hang around and poke at you with the stick. If he can manage to do that all kind and nice and everything.
My phone might die, just
It
FYI. So if I go away, that's what happened.
All right. If you go away, we will point and laugh. David, do you hear us all right?
You're now coming through loud and clear. It was
Good.
really unfortunate that I had to ask that question, and then I didn't hear the answer, and everyone else did. But I'm going to look back on the stream.
The question. I knew you were gone, so I'm going to bring it up now. You notice I put myself in the upper left. I'm going to talk about Dunning Kruger. So they did this thing, and they measured it in a bunch of different environments for a bunch of different kinds of contests. I'm not going to go into what the Dunning Kruger test is. That would be a longer thing. But they checked it in different regions, and they checked it across different countries, and they checked it across all sorts of different skills and different age groups, and it kept showing up. Here is this effect. The Dunning Kruger effect is a real thing. And then they took it to Asia, and they tested Chinese people, and it disappeared. Poof, in a puff of humility. As it turns out, when Western people are asked whether they are above or below average or at average or whatever at any particular task, none of them will ever admit being below average. So at least half of them are wrong, right? None of them will ever admit to being below average. But you go to Beijing and you ask people, and if they don't know anything about it, they say, oh, I'm not any good at that. I've never done that at all. And they will knock themselves right down at 10%. And the Mount Stupid curve just falls right off, and the graph becomes almost linear. Not that people are great at estimating, but they don't reverse the curve, which is the Dunning Kruger effect, where Mount Stupid jumps up. Anyway, so Dunning Kruger, not in the Himalayan mountains, apparently.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So, in terms of, I mean, maybe I'm at Mount Stupid, but in terms of going forwards, if the slope is still up and with knowledge and confidence is still sort of at some sort of peak that we're getting to, and it's if it's still a good idea to acquire more knowledge, which is a claim that I would make with 100% level of confidence, then I think we'd still act in the same way, though. Surely we still try and promote. So these messages are so distracting. We still act in the same way. No, don't worry about it. We still act in the same way. So we are still trying to question how we acquire knowledge and how we verify truth. And so SE doesn't change. SE is still good. And the main question would be still, how do we verify whether things are true?
I have an answer to that question. I'm not sure. Should I be answering that question?
Go for it.
Yeah, go.
I think the way we determine things are true are categorical. If they're countable, I should count them and use the countable and statistical kind of means. If they are definitional qualifiable, I take those definitions and I hand them to a bunch of independent people and have them look at the same or similar data and see if they manage to categorize similar to each other. That tells us that the categories are functional and able to be replicated. And then I can take those categories and then I can do social sciences and that kind of thing with it. If it's about what do words mean, I got to go for definitions, and I have to survey all the different definitions that people are using and try to figure out which ones are the most common. And if I can actually find the author to explain it, then I can take their definitions and I can figure out what words mean kind of statistically. Again, there's some error in there, but we can work that for words definitions. If I want to look at values, I would measure the behaviors of groups of people when they're working. So those are like 4 really separate epistemologies, and it very much is categorical how we get to truth. I think the word truth is epistemology specific. What does truth mean? Depends on the epistemology. I'm trying to adopt the 5th one that says trust experts. I'm not very good at that.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading in that book, the Language versus Reality, why it's good for lawyers and not for scientists. And the whole idea of like when we're defining words is all about how we are using those words to persuade and create social cohesion and to cooperate to do social things. So I'm just thinking in the context of street epistemology and trying to get to the truth, like we're playing around that, like which way are we going to go on this map to find the bridge? There was like an example in the book where you have 2 parachuters. It's the shelling experiment, and they land like one on one side of a map, one on the other, and there's a bridge in between. And almost every time they do the test, the people who don't know what the other person is thinking, because they're just looking at the map, say, I would go to the bridge. And like, how do we come to that? And the like social significance of words. So like you're saying, like what's the most common use in the culture? It seems to be what the culture agrees upon, but that changes over time. I think it makes the task of street epistemology both more interesting and more difficult.
Indeed. So anybody who wants to, call right in. We'd love to see you and talk to you directly. If you have lots of comments, I can distract David with them. So bring it on. Start typing. We'll have David completely flustered before the end of the show.
Excellent. That's exactly what we want to do. Yes.
Winding David up is, it's all part of the show.
I also enjoyed trading black cats on the screen with Thomas, so that was fun.
We need to see them both at the same time, so we know you're just not in up sides of the same room.
Can I therefore ask? Oh, sorry. Please continue.
I was just saying, mine's all blue collar, so that's how you know the difference.
That's
I
so.
I only wanted to ask Thomas. Tom, sorry. Because we've never done that particular technique before, and I wasn't really sure about it. I wasn't sure how to do it, and I knew through doing it we will learn what not to do, and then we can avoid that later on, and that we probably shouldn't be afraid of trying something new for that reason. So from your perspective, was it too combative? Could it be improved in some way? Would it help to maybe help draw the graph with you and say, where do you think the level of confidence should be for this level of knowledge? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I think somebody in the chat said perhaps to do it right at the beginning, to just sort of lay that, model out first, maybe even before the claim. I'm not sure.
Jonny, thank you for joining. Your video was strobing, and thank you if you end up coming back.
That's great feedback. Yeah, I mean, I technically have no feedback whatsoever, so any feedback's great. Does Dali have anything on that particularly, or Rosemary?
I was thinking it was a little bit difficult, I think, to use because of the topography. It makes it hard to think about where you fall. Like, it's much easier to have a straight line spectrum or a circle, but when you have that up and down, it gets confusing, perhaps. It's a little harder to pick a point.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely. So especially when it comes to what Boghossian's doing with the 7 lines and saying strongly agree, slightly agree, etc. That seems to be a very easy way to get large numbers of people in a public place to all sort of get involved with that conversation in a very simple way. Yeah.
Kurglow asks, should interlocutor ever be prevented from defining terms the way they want? Thoughts?
No, is my initial thought.
Okay. I agree. Initially, no. There might be some situations where I would object and just say, you are using the term as its own opposite. So could you give me a different word for your version of it? Or can we agree that the regular mainstream is not what we're talking about in this conversation at all? But that's my inability to deal with somebody who wants to use the same word for two diametrically opposed ideas. Something like that. Hello, Bow and Arrow. What would you bring?
How's it going?
It's going well.
So, who would like to help me clarify a claim first and then SE it? So, this would be an apparent, and I will not say definitely, I will say what appears to be a supernatural experience recently.
Okay.
So,
a recent personally observed, or were you the witness?
Personally observed, yes. Personally observed.
Cool,
Very
cool.
interesting.
Okay. Any volunteers who wants to go for that?
Dali, you're welcome to take it if you want, just because my microphone has, I think I'm the feedback.
Sure.
I think I just lost. I think I lost connection for a second there.
Okay. Yes, I will do that, and I can even just leave the other people up on the screen, and
Sure.
they can yell and shout if they like, but avoid dogpiling. So, you've got, I'm going to stick myself up here at the top. You've got a recent experience that appears to you to be supernatural. Is that correct?
Appears, yes. I will not say that I know that it is. I will say that it appears to be.
Okay. Claim is, I had a recent apparently supernatural experience. Let's see. Does that look right to you?
Had a recent, apparently supernatural. Yeah. Looks like that's on the money.
Fantastic. Cool. How long ago was it?
About 2 weeks ago.
Okay. About 2 weeks ago, you had an apparently supernatural experience. Can you describe the conditions? What was happening for you at the time?
Sure, I'll set you up. So I've recently become a volunteer tour guide at our local museum. So I was exploring the history of the area, and there was a mansion in our town I didn't know anything about it, or if anybody even was operating it or doing anything with it. So I just randomly wanted to learn the history. So I went up to it, and wouldn't you know it? Oh, they say it's haunted. I walk in, and there's these two girls, and they say, all right, for $10, we'll let you walk around the mansion here, and you can see if any ghost encounters happen, anything like that. Now, before I paid the $10 and walked around the house, because I thought, hey, it's only $10, why not? I said, well, have you had any supernatural encounters? And of course, they told about the history and people that do the ghost tours there and all this. I said, oh, that's interesting. And then I said, I noticed that you have some pendulums and some dowsing rods there. So they took their, I said, can you guys use these? These are two girls. They're probably in their mid-20s. And one of them said, yeah. She says, watch this. So she picks up the pendulum first, and I said, oh, hold on a second. I said, I got to turn on my ghost app. So I got this free ghost app, which I just kind of thought it was fun, but at the same time, some interesting things have happened on that too. So we can discuss that too. So I turn it on, okay? And she starts asking questions, right? And she says, all right, if it goes in a big circle, that's a yes. If it goes in a straight line back and forth, that's a no. So I'm watching. I'm not more than 24 inches from her arm. I'm watching like an eagle to see if she's going to move that thing, or, and I just got my eyes just fixed on her fingers and on her arm there to make sure she's not moving. She's asking questions to the ghost, and that thing just big old circles, and her hands are not moving. Her fingers are not moving. And so I'm like, well, I've seen magicians do things, and I don't know how they do it. So, because she could be playing a trick on me. I don't know. But I don't have a clue how she could be doing it. That doesn't mean that there's not a way, just like magicians. So, okay. I said, well, that's really interesting. And then one time I said, I think I saw your fingers move a little bit. And just as soon as right as soon as I finished that sentence, my ghost app says, observe. Okay. And so I look closer. I said, all right, well, let's do it again. I said, well, that's interesting. And so I look at her. Her arm is not moving at all. Like it gets even stiller, like almost like something grabbed it. And I think her fingers are not moving. Her arm's not moving. And it's answering the questions. I said, well, all right. How about the dowsing rods over there? Now, these dowsing rods, there's a cylinder, okay? And then a bent metal rod that goes in the short part that you hold
has a bearing
inside
in
the
it,
cylinder.
so it moves freely within, and it's
Correct.
If they were to twist it like this, it really wouldn't do it. But if they tilt at all, it makes it.
If you tilt it, it would work, right? Yeah, you could tilt it and make it do that for sure. Right. Yep. So I'm watching their hands like a hawk, but their hands are not moving. And sure enough, okay, X for yes, they spread out for Y. And I'm just looking, her hands are not tilting. And I'm 24 inches, plenty of lighting, nice bright room. So, but you could easily tilt your hands and make it happen. That's for sure. No doubt about that. But I'm looking close and her hands are not tilting, because that's the first thing I thought, All right. So, well, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go through the house and with my ghost app on and see if there's anything I can pick up. It's like a big mansion. It's built in the 1850s and by the descendants of some of the founders that fought with Washington. And it's just really interesting history. So anyway, so I said, I at least want to go see it. So I leave the ghost app on, and I go into a room.
Jump in.
Sure.
James asks, was this advertised as a haunted house tour? This was a commercial haunted house?
It was, yes.
Okay.
I didn't know it at the time when I first got there, because I just started learning this stuff. So I'm new to all this. So I just started going in there and learning the history. And yeah, they do have a ghost tour. They advertise it. I got their pamphlet. I may even go do it one of these days just for the heck of it,
Sure.
So, all right.
The ghost app.
Yeah, they can actually, you can pay a little bit more and have a guided tour, or you can just pay $10 and walk around by yourself. So, well, I was by myself.
Ghost app. Is this something that's on your phone?
It is. It's a ghost app on my phone.
What is the
well, you just turn it on and, I guess now how it works, I don't know, but it's very interesting because I had a friend who told me about it. And so he has the same ghost app and we have some very interesting experiences on it. So, very interesting. More than once it's told me about rain. Like one time I'm sitting at a window while looking out the window and it says my middle name, which I won't say here. And it says that. And then immediately after it says rain, and it's raining. I'm looking out and I was like, it's raining. And then it says October and it's like October. I'm like, well, that's pretty interesting. And it does things like this quite a bit, actually. And here at this, now that was a different experience, but here at the haunted house, so to speak, I go into a room that's called the music room. It has a thing on there, and they used to sing and hire people and stuff to teach music and stuff. So they called it the music room. As soon as I walk in there, it goes, sing. So, well, that's interesting. I walk over to the window and I look out the window for a second, just kind of looking around, seeing the view and stuff like that. And it says rain. And like a minute later, it starts raining. I'm like, okay. I get a little disoriented because it's a pretty big mansion. I'm trying to find my way back to where I was. And it says, go through the path. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So, it said several different things and a few other things when I was talking with the ladies too. Of course, like I said, it told me to observe right when I asked a question. And, for example, one time I'm talking to the friend that showed me the app and his wife had been killed by a biker that went by the name of Shovel. And so we're talking, and it's talking to him through my thing, saying things that only she would know. And then it says Shovel, and I'm like,
Through your thing,
well,
like the app thing?
Yeah, the app does that weird stuff.
Now I wanna understand this app now.
Yeah, sure.
Who makes it? What are they? What is this app? What is its behavior?
Oh, all right.
What
Well,
information sources does it have? This is sounding like the app itself is more the claim than the original dowsing thing.
yeah. Well, so I guess maybe we could clarify it if you want. If you want to change the.
I'm not so much changing the thing. Apparently, the supernatural experience has as much or more to do with the app than the dowsing rod.
Yeah, they all seem to answer questions. You know what I mean? When in some way or form. Or
so the app and the dowsing rod are both part of the experience, or are you saying you're having multiple experiences?
Well, I guess so. I guess they would be multiple experiences because I've been playing with the app for a couple months. Well, it was last October, so I guess I got it in September, October last year. And occasionally I just turn it on for the heck of it, and it'll say some interesting things once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah. So
can you think of ways in which you could confirm that what the app was doing is tapping into something supernatural? And I probably need you to define supernatural for me. I think, let me do that first.
Yeah.
Can you define supernatural for me? What that would mean?
What would supernatural mean? Let's say if I ask it a question and it gave me a pre-recorded response or something, or if I was trying to, and I've never tried to do the dowsing rods or the pendulum myself, but if I did and nothing ever happened, because I would know if I was moving my own hands and stuff like that, right?
Would you?
Maybe someday I'll try it. I don't know, but yeah. Well, if it was just spitting out nonsense all the time, that would not be supernatural. But if it's given very detailed answers that no one would know except somebody that's not alive anymore, you're kind of like,
Would the person who was holding the rods know the answers to the question?
Oh, I never met him before, so that would be highly extremely improbable.
This is information you knew that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got confused. We're mixing two things. So yeah, no, they would know the answers to the questions at the haunted house. Yeah, at the mansion, sure.
Okay,
because they're the tour guides and stuff, so they would know the answers to those questions.
Throw this crazy hypothetical out there that the person had figured out a way to affect the rods, maybe not even consciously, maybe even subconsciously, had figured out a way to connect the rods and therefore could answer without even necessarily being aware of how they answered, or they could try to fool you in that regard. Is that possible?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe. But, somebody suggested it. Right. No, I can't rule it out. I mean, there's possibilities that somebody could be manipulating radio magnets or something somewhere, somehow. I don't know exactly.
Sure.
Because you make radios out of crystals, right? So
they'll set me up.
I'm sorry, say one more time.
I talked to the Tour de France people that faked and managed to make hybrid bicycles out of bicycles the inspectors couldn't find the batteries in. And they could set me up with rods that somebody from another room could drive with a little remote control stick. Yeah,
you can't rule that out. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm not suggesting that that's the answer. I just think, an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be, though, about the app itself.
That's a little more interesting because the app seems to know things that only, when it answers questions specifically that you're talking about and it starts getting real specific, you're like, how does it do that? Now I gotta be full disclosure here that sometimes it just speaks nonsense too. It just says words show up and nothing happens.
Okay, so it's a little bit random. My phone does the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It tells me when it's raining.
Right. Yeah. You gotta. So you could say, well, maybe the people that make the app make it to listen to what you say and program it to respond in some way.
Okay.
Maybe I can't prove it because I I don't know
I
how
don't
to
know
look
what
at.
the app does. I don't know what permissions it has. I don't know if
Right.
they're even telling you necessarily, but in any case, so what
Mhm.
could hypothetically raise your confidence? I don't know what your confidence was. How confident are you that these experiences are supernatural?
Man, see, like I didn't expect this to even happen, right? So, my views have changed drastically in the last couple years.
Okay.
So now I'm kind of like, I don't know what the ultimate reality of the universe is. So I'm trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
So I'm like, what is going on here? So I'm kind of just up in the air. It's like one of these things I need to gather more information and try to
Right.
put to the test more. So if you say on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I?
Yeah, I'm hearing that prior to several years ago, you were very low on the supernatural.
No, the other way around.
You were very high on supernatural, and now
Yeah,
you are in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I was a Hiles Anderson graduate.
I don't know the name drop.
Oh, you don't know Hiles Anderson College? Jack Scott, Jack Hiles?
No, that doesn't ring a bell for me.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's
Under a rock.
Okay. No, that's all right. It's a fundamentalist Baptist college.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, theistic college. Then yes, supernatural, like locked at high.
Yeah. You know, it's
cool.
preaching on street corners, kind, right?
And where are you on that question? If I were to ask the subclaim, what's your confidence in the supernatural exists?
Yeah, like right because of things that have shaken up my worldview here in the last year or so. Man, it's kind of like 50-50 now, you know? It was 110%. Now it's somewhere in the middle. I don't know exactly how the world functions anymore, you know? So
now
how does the ultimate universe? Yeah.
Stories. I want you to tell me something you don't know, something you don't think is true that you could learn tomorrow that would raise your confidence.
Something that would raise my confidence in the app or in this or in supernatural.
Although in raise your confidence that the app is telling you things that are supernatural would qualify.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Apparent experiences were supernatural. Any of those?
Well, let's say I take a ghost tour, right? And like, I mean, let's say something moves across the room or something. Even yesterday, I actually saw that. Well, I didn't see it, but I heard it happen when I was talking to somebody. He says, listen, the same guy that gave me the ghost app, he says, ghosts throw things across my room all the time. And more than once, I've been sitting there and I hear something just slam across the floor. And I said, what the heck was that? He says, well, it just threw something off the shelf at me again. And then yesterday, same thing happened. There was something. Yeah, there was a pen sitting on the other side of the room, and it flew. No, a hairpiece. It was a hairpiece, one of those little things girls wear, and it flew across the room and hit him in the back. He goes, "Ouch! What was that?" And he says, "Oh, it threw something at me again." I said, "Well, that's weird." So okay. And it's the same guy that his wife was murdered by a biker named Shovel, and it says Shovel on my app when I'm talking to him. Weird. And a bunch of other things that only she would probably know. So. Okay, so what could let's say I take a ghost tour and things just start moving around and things got thrown off the shelves or something, or that would be like personal experience, and you still would have to you'd have to vet that. Okay, well, are there other things that could cause the personal experiences? Is somebody pulling a string and pulling something off the shelf?
So essentially, like more of what you've already experienced, just added on.
Yeah, in different ways, more experiences to verify until you've done it enough times where, if I ask some real specific questions and get like a whole sentence of answers or something that, makes a whole lot of real intelligent sense, without just one answer. But the funny thing is the other guy does. He gets entire sentences on the same map.
So if I were to grab my Dungeons and Dragons dice.
Yeah.
Okay. Platonic Solids dice.
Yeah.
And I were to shake up the box, and then you were to ask your thing, What are the old numbers? What are the numbers in my box?
Yeah. See, that's a good experiment. So let's just say, how many dice do you have?
I have 6 dice here: a D4, a D8, a D6, a D10, a D12, and a D20.
Okay, I never played Dungeons and Dragons. So are there more numbers? So did you just tell me the numbers that are showing?
No, I just told you the number of sides on the dice. Like this is.
Oh, okay. So they go through.
So
are they 6-sided dice? I can't tell.
10, 12, and 20.
Okay.
Well, I'll reshuffle it now that you've had a chance to see the dice. But those are the dice. They're just little 3D printed, multi-sided dice. They're called platonic dice because they're other than the 10-sided, they are platonic solids.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you got squares, triangles, circles, and
but in this case, solids, the 3-dimensional, like the dodecahedron and
three-dimensional, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so let's just say you had 6 dice, right? So let's say just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, okay, that's not correct, but okay.
But you probably have a few of those probably matched up, right? Just like the ghost hat. So it throws out enough things, some of them are going to match, right? Yeah, I get that.
Right, but I'm saying I want you to get all 6 out of 6. If you got all 6 out of 6, and then we repeated the thing, and
right,
all 6 out of 6, and then we repeated the thing, and we got all 6 out of 6. If we keep doing that for a while, we start getting to odds that are
impossible, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, highly improbable.
Right. Yeah, so, extremely improbable.
Yeah, don't want to say impossible.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get you.
But if I take two decks of cards and I shuffle them sufficiently to make them actually random, and I lay them out, that's 10 to the 160th. That's the number of particles in the known universe squared.
Yeah.
Is that unique? Yeah, that's the way to bet. That was a unique deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want the hypothetical the other direction, and I'll bring people on while you think about that. In that other direction, what could you learn that would lower your confidence in any one of those claims? That you've had a recently supernatural experience sort of depends on the supernatural does exist, or that maybe
do some more investigation with these folks and find out they're lying somehow. I find some magnets or radio signals or however, batteries somewhere, that would definitely disprove that they're telling the truth. That's for sure.
Okay, so if James Randi came back to life and found them to be frauds, that would move you.
Sure, absolutely. If anybody could go in there and prove them to be frauds, that would definitely be find anything. If it, I think if somebody's lying at all, they're probably lying on a bunch of things, right? So if they could just prove that they were lying about anything on there with the supernatural claims, then I would say, yeah, they probably lying about all of it. So they'd only have to prove like one thing was definitely a lie.
They could be tainted by one charlatan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean them, not, not just a random, not somebody else. Somebody else could be lying somewhere else, but not the people that I actually saw with my own eyes. If I saw those people caught in a lie, then it'd be over. You know what I mean? I'd be like, charlatans.
Panel, have at. I invite any further questions from the panel and the audience. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
I had a question. So if you found out that other people have also gone to the haunted house with the same app and had similar results in the app telling them, would that raise your confidence? Would that lower your confidence? Would it not change your confidence?
Yeah, it would. If they do use the same app, yeah, sure. And they go in there and they find pretty similar answers in the same place. Like, let's say somebody else walks into that music room and their app says sing at the same time. I'd be like, hey, wow, what are the chances of that, right? Because if it's just throwing out random words and it throws out the same random word because it's got the entire dictionary in it, I suppose, right? So it could throw out any word. What are the chances it's going to throw out the same word at the same time? So yeah, that would definitely raise my suspicion that maybe something supernatural is going on here.
Okay. What if you recognize that the app was choosing words based on GPS location?
Oh yeah. If we could prove that, it'd have to be this app, not just any app, because maybe this guy's an honest creator of an app, and you could say, well, this guy over here created a fake app. Okay, but yeah, definitely, that would throw it right out.
Cool. David, Thomas.
I can say something, but I'd leave it to somebody else first.
Okay, Robert says you could have a ghost app test, count the total number of hits and misses, and compare those totals against random chance likelihood given tests. So Robert wants statistical rigor.
There you go. Spoken like a Hamilton. Very good.
He was in the room.
That's logical. I like that idea. I'm looking through my bifocals here. The words are really small on my screen here.
Morgan asks, how does he know if it's a ghost? If someone says it's a witch leaving close by moving these things, how can we find out if one of them is correct? Like, given the information of things are flying across the room, could you determine whether it was a witch or a ghost? Could you determine whether it was something special effects in the walls?
Mm-hmm. Now, those experience of things going across the room were not at the haunted house, so I may have not made that clear. Those were separate experiences while I'm online, like I am with you guys, not streaming, but just talking in a video chat or whatever with them.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, right? And of course, he has another person there who's witnessing it at the same time. So I have no reason to think they're lying to me. In fact, I have a lot of reasons to think they're not, for other reasons. And and I've heard the noises myself. So something flies off the thing. I hear a crash. I said, "What was that?" And he turns around and he says, "Oh, threw something else off the shelf again across the room." And this happens. It's happened twice so far. It happened yesterday and one other time. So this is twice. This has happened while I was talking to him. He says it happens all the time in this place.
Okay, so you're watching through a camera.
Yeah, just like we are looking at each other right now. Mm-hmm.
And is the thing in view when it starts moving?
No, because I was looking at his face, right? So, it was somewhere behind him, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't see it move. I just heard it.
I very much agree with Martin that if James Randi came back to life, that would definitely increase my confidence in the supernatural. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Even if James Randi then proved, I'm not sure how that would work. Anyway. Thank you, Bowe.
But ironically, even my friend that has things thrown across the room, he says, "Oh, they're fooling you for $10 to get dowsing rods and pendulums working." He says, "No, that's just a scam." He thinks it's just what they're doing is a scam, but the things flying across the room are really happening. So, I don't know what is the nature of reality. I don't know anymore. I just don't get it. I don't know what's going on here.
Could I quickly ask what the app is called?
Shoot. I'm afraid if I look at it while I'm not something. Is it Ghost Connect? I'm afraid if I look at it while I'm talking to you on my phone, it might disconnect our thing. I don't want to do that. Shoot.
That's fine.
AR Ghost Connect or something like that. It was it's $2.99 in the App Store. So, and I chose that specific one because that's what my friend that I was talking to that has stuff thrown across the room and gets entire sentences on his all the time. And he shows them to me. He gets entire sentences from what he believes are his ex-wives saying things that only they would know, like very intimate details. Entire sentence. I only get one words. It's the same app. We compared, made sure we downloaded the same app to make sure, And it'll talk to him and then talk a little bit to me at the same time, and it'll say things that are very, very connected. Very interesting. It usually has to do with his old wives, his former wives that are dead. So I don't know how to explain that. You know what I mean? Because for me, you could say, well, a random word, and I've never got a full sentence. The most I've got is like 3 consecutive words, but they show up one at a time, right? Now he gets entire sentences. It doesn't make any sense. Like it shouldn't happen on his end. And there's no way to input anything into it. It doesn't have that option. So he's getting entire sentences.
Looking at it?
No, it doesn't appear to be affected by touch or by looking at it or anything like that. No, it's just, it just has a screen and it, whenever it detects whatever that means, however it does it, and I honestly don't know how it works. So whenever it detects, it just puts a word on the screen. It could just be random words, maybe, I don't know. But on his side, there's no way, because he shows me the screen and it's entire sentences. It's like that doesn't even happen on mine ever. It's never one time happened.
The assumption that the programmer of the app has access to all of the sensors in the phone.
Okay, so that may be.
If you picked up to look at it, it can tell that you moved it. If you scroll, if you look at the app, if you where you are, what noises are going on around you, what's the light level, your heartbeat, if it's an apple something, I don't know. But in any case, thank you, Bowe and Arrow. I would like to give the rest of the time to Jonny. Welcome, Jonny. And Bowe, you're so welcome to hang.
Sure.
All right. Jonny, what do you bring?
I'm not sure. Hi. I mean, I've been watching the show for a bit. Like, I think I first heard of you guys because of Pine Creek, I think.
Oh, nice.
And I sort of got interested, and I sort of just joined in, not really knowing specifically what to talk about. About that app, I don't think I got exactly what the app does, but from what I heard, I think the explanation that probably the developer has some access to the personal information and stuff like that, that kind of sticks with me. I mean, again, I've seen and that comment about statistical analysis, about exactly how much. Sorry. Oh, I thought someone.
I don't mean to have said anything.
Oh, sorry. I think my computer is possessed. And
I think there was some feedback from somebody. Yeah, probably muted.
All right. But someone made a point about that statistical analysis about how many stuff that's being said by the app actually matters, how much is actually correct. Because I remember this clip from the James Randi show when this guy did a cold reading, and the person who got read was so amazed because, oh my God, he gets this. And to the person, it seemed very supernatural, the fact that he could do it. But then James Randi just pulled out statistics, and he said, because this was a typical cold reading. It was your nephew did this, his name is XY, the typical stuff. And
has
Randi
a name with these 3 letters in it.
Yeah, exactly. And Randi literally just pulled out a sheet, which is the guy gave 37 names, only got 1 right, and he read the Andy, Andrew, Mandy, he said he also specified it might start with L or M. He said it might be a nephew, might be an uncle. It's so. I mean, I don't judge because I don't know anything about the app or about your experience with it. But again, to me, it's just I don't think it matters how smart you are. It's just when something happens to you personally and you don't really have a statistics sheet ready to read into it, it's very difficult to judge. Even stuff with COVID numbers. I know people who are very smart who could say COVID is bullshit just because it's I don't know anyone who died on it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. It's well, there are statistics, but personal experience can be very different. Or the amount of smart people, people who I respect, who are my friends, who I heard say stuff oh, well, I know the guy who got a vaccine and he died. And I know a person without a vaccine and they went through COVID and nothing happened to them, right? It's just
Yes,
when we're talking about something that's very personal, because obviously stuff like ghosts and supernatural stuff, it affects you personally. Stuff like lockdown and hospitals being closed and business, it affects you personally. So you can be very smart, but you can just look at this very specific experience of yours that might be correct. It might be correct that everyone who got the vaccine, it didn't do well for them. And, people without a vaccine who survived COVID and are perfect. But you're one person compared to an entire population. Yeah. So another question I would ask is okay, the app works for you. how many people it worked for. Like, even if we assume it worked for you, like that exactly the app actually guessed everything for you, how many users does it have, and how many users would say, oh no, it's bullshit, I paid like $3 for it and it just told me a bunch of garbage. So
Right. Sure. All logical points. And I don't know anybody else that has it besides me and him.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I guess you could all download it and try it and let me know.
I mean, it costs
You don't care
money,
about wasting $3.
exactly. Like, but this is like the problem with supernatural stuff for me, because I spoke recently with I think you guys heard about Tim McGrew, the theologian.
Yes,
So I spoke.
Tim and Lydia work together.
Yeah, I only spoke with him, and this is the kind of problem with we kind of talked about, but this is the kind of problem with supernatural stuff with me, which is just like, well, okay, there's one person with an app experience, and when you really want to be skeptical, you can just ask so many questions that there's no answer to, that you can pretty much undermine any claim, to the extent that even religious people do that. Some, like, I think Dale Ellison, the historian, he's like a Christian, he believes in a bunch of stuff, but he like said on a bunch of interviews, like, oh yeah, I think I had a miracle happen in my life. I think I experienced teleportation. I think he specifically said like something dematerialized and reappeared somewhere else. And he's a believing guy, he's a religious guy, but he was also like, yeah, but I wouldn't tell that to anyone. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, you have to believe me because I'm an eyewitness. Like, no, you're gonna think I'm crazy, and I don't even know what to think about it. I think it's real, but like, honestly, so this is like the big problem with like all the claims, whether we're talking about ghosts or souls or resurrect, like you name it, because it's such a specific thing for which there's no like a specific methodology or a specific pattern. Essentially, all you have is, at the one hand, you have, and I guess this is kind of Hume kind of stuff thing, but like at the one hand, you have like a millions of people experiencing reality in a specific way where laws of physics work, and then you have like a app that does something weird, or you have teleportation, and you have like a personal, and it's just like, I don't know what I would do if I had that kind of experience. I really don't. But from everyone else's perspective, it's just like, at the one hand, you can just say, you can ask so many questions and make so many possible scenarios where you can pretty much dismiss any claim. But at the other hand, and this is the question that McGrew actually asked me, it was, well, what if it was true? Then you wouldn't know, essentially. And I'm kind of misinterpreting him, probably. I think he put it a bit better, but it's just like, at the one hand, I think it's rational to just look at stuff like that and pose those questions and say, well, what's more likely? But at the other hand, if supernatural stuff happens, then we would never know, because we can always come up with this sort of scenario. And this is a little bit of a problem for me personally. Like, I don't know how to deal with it, really.
So if we witnessed a supernatural event, you think that we could ad hoc explain away that event? Is that right? And am I using the term right? Ad hoc is like explain it after the fact, once we know the thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
want to challenge the entire everybody in here then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You ready? I'm going to ask you a question. Can you give me an example of something you could experience that you couldn't ad hoc explain away and should raise your confidence in the supernatural? I'll go last because I want unique ones. And so I'm not going to take the low-hanging fruit. Go ahead.
Can I? Oh, sorry, I barged in and I'm sort of...
No, it's you're first. I'm asking for 6 unique examples of something that I couldn't ad hoc explain.
I'll give you 2 examples, and one doesn't work, and I'll explain why, in my opinion. And this is the example that I think Matt Dillahunty gave in one of the debates with Mike Licona, and Mike Licona got really upset about it. Rightfully so. Like, I don't want to knock him down. I understand it. But because the example was like, what if you saw me having my head being cut off and it falls down and I just pick it up, put it back in, and like in Reanimator, I just put it back in, and I like, this is clear. And he said, well, what if it's like aliens? What if it's nanotechnology? And I understand that this is like frustrating a lot of people, but like, if you say that naturalism is completely true and human body is just a collection of atoms, in principle, you can say that there could be super sophisticated nanotechnology where you can reassemble it perfectly and you wouldn't even know. So I would say this wouldn't really work, because if you want to say that, posing nanotechnology or aliens or something crazy like that, if you want to say that this is too crazy, well, ghosts and spirits are also kind of crazy, and I would go with natural explanation, kind of. So what I want to see is something that's not only cannot be explained naturalistically with what we have right now, but something that is either predicted or heavily implied by like a specific religious or spiritual tradition. And I think the example that's given often, like with the resurrection of Jesus, for example, like you can make all the scenarios about stolen body and tomb not being real and like a Jesus twin brother and conspiracies. You can, but like if you had a situation where Jesus dies and then his disciples see him, and you have writings that say, for example, and he told us such, and all the stuff from the Bible. But then he also appears in India and China and Europe and all these different countries in the very same year, and we all send historians and we all find these documents, and we can literally like radiometric date documents and confirm historically using scientific methods that they were really written in India and in China and in all these different places, and they all say, hey, I'm an author in China, I'm an author in whatever. There was this weird guy who just appeared to us out of nowhere, who had a different skin color and started saying he's a son of God and his father is Yahweh and his name is Yeshua, and essentially just laying out Christian doctrine. And we know from scientific method that it's more probable than not, like 99.9999, the confidence you can reasonably get out of science, that they were really written there at this time by these authors.
I thought you were going like prophecy. It sounds to me like you want historical testimony.
Well, it's not just a historical testimony, because it's a one thing to have a testimony of a guy.
Okay.
It's another thing to have multiple testimonies from like different continents within the same year during the times when planes weren't invented. Like I'm saying first century, I'm saying like first century Jesus, right after resurrection, right after appearing to the 500 or whatever. He also appears to people in China, and we have writings like technically I didn't see it personally, like I would see with the person with the head being cut off, but like I do not even if you involve like aliens and nanotechnology, I cannot think of a single explanation that would like, maybe I'm just not imaginative.
I would call that the Arthur Clarke out, that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that would be the Matt Dillahunty way of getting out of this one. And Matt, I love you, but no.
Yeah, this is a bit frustrating, because again, it comes back to a question, well, what if it was truly supernatural? You would never know, because you have this epistemology that will never allow for anything outside of what you already believe.
Yeah, I in this case, I'm asking you to be raised in your confidence, because you maybe can't rule out, unknown alien technology. Sure. No problem there. So supernatural or unknown alien technology. Yeah. All right. Anybody else got one?
Well, sure. What if I got a confirmation of like what happened to my kid when she was 4? So here's a whole nother supernatural experience, right? Like, let's say a ghost came in and just talked to me, sat down, talked to me or something, and then disappeared right in front of me. Well, that'd be pretty convincing. But when she was 4 years old, okay, I was in the living room with my wife, and she didn't like what we were watching on TV. So she was in my bedroom watching TV. We hear thud real loud. We're like, look at each other and say, what in the world's that? And we're like, oh, where's the kid? We look around, oh, she's not there. So we didn't even realize she's out of the room. So we walk in there and, oh, she's laying on the floor, and obviously dazed, laying on her back, completely down. And we said, what happened? And she said, the TV fell on me. I look at the TV. It's a 27-inch tube TV back in the day, not a flat screen like we had today. And she says, the TV fell on me. And I said, well, the TV's sitting up there and it's plugged in. I said, what are you talking about? She said the lady in red took it off of me, the lady in the red dress. I said, what lady in the red dress? She said, it went out the window. And she said, I'll be all right.
Oh, good. I'm glad she's all
right. What in the world does that mean? Now, if I see something like that happen, I'm I'm going to be seriously more convinced, right? Now
Yeah,
she's 4, so
you
how
saw that
great
happen.
is the testimony?
It's different
No,
than
I
you
didn't.
heard that happen, right?
I heard it. I heard the thud.
Heard about it, yeah.
And I'm going by the confirmation of a 4-year-old. So, you know, how valid is that?
I don't care if she's 4-year-old. I would just call it an exorcist. I'm an atheist, but I would call it an exorcist. Like if that happened, I would be like,
oh, it was spooky, no doubt. We were all looking at each other because she's got Asperger's real strong, and she's not the kind to just make stuff up and lie, you know. So this is not her. So I highly doubt that she was lying, but I don't know.
Rosemary, David, Thomas?
Sure. If I felt myself floating and realized I was levitating and I was not touching anything else in the room, and I stayed in that position for a extended period of time, we'll say 10 minutes, that would increase my confidence.
Could you rule out sleep paralysis?
I would assume I'm awake in this particular instance because I've had sleep paralysis. So like right now while I'm awake.
Okay, so you'd rule that out by being fully awake and aware and then something. Okay, thank you. Thomas?
The only thing that comes to mind for me would be some sort of miracle that defies the laws of physics in some way, repeatable with multiple witnesses.
Okay,
that's how I would.
So you're taking Jonny and Rosemary's thing and mixing it up and making it yourself. I'm claiming that Jonny is using multiple independent attestation testimonies. Rosemary is using a violation of the laws of physics. Bowe and Arrow is using an apparition that does something physically impossible. Have I got those right?
It would have to be repeatable, and you know, I mean, you could attribute hallucination or stroke or just whatever brain sort of abnormality,
especially in a single event. But you're saying multiple events. And
it has to be repeatable. And I'm not sure if that wouldn't make it then science, not to go back to the Dillahunty thing.
Sure. You know, some say if you discover the supernatural, it becomes natural if you manage to interact with it in the right way. And I say, sure, same goes for unknown alien technologies.
oh, I disagree with that kind of.
Okay, tell me.
Because like if we find out that like ghosts are real and spirits are real and they're literally not made of atoms, they're made of something else, it would not be like, I guess it's a discussion about language, but I would not say, oh, this is now natural. It's like, no, it would be supernatural. It's just confirmed. And I also I don't really understand that saying, and I don't think you really said that you believe that. I think you just sort of brought it up, but that thing about like, oh, if we can test supernatural, then it just becomes science when it's repeatable. And like I never really understood it. And I think the underlying assumption is sort of like, there's this mechanical world made of atoms. And if there's something supernatural, it's just going to be complete, like there's no rules. And, you know, it could be true, but not necessarily. I mean, there are like pantheists, and I would say, you know, there's supernatural realm, but, you know, it follows certain, it's not like it's unlimited, like a god or something like that. Or even like reincarnation. I would assume reincarnation has a very strict rules, and it's not naturalistic, it's supernaturalistic. So like, I know that people who do believe in that stuff often like don't like that because they said, well, you can't put a god under microscope and that's. But like honestly, I mean, people are really complicated. And like even if you're theist, even if you believe you are made of a soul and in your consciousness is your soul, despite the fact that our soul making us do things, you can still do psychology. You can still statistically say if that person has certain elements in his body, like lead or something, they will be more violent. You know, under these circumstances, these people with souls will be more likely to do these. All these experiments work in the real world. Like entire field of psychology that statistically tests behavior. And it's in the world in which we exist. And theists believe that this is the world in which we have a soul, and the soul makes us have consciousness and make decisions. So like, I would say, even if souls exist and ghosts exist, and this is all supernatural, like even if you cannot use science, I see no reason why there wouldn't be some sort of methodology where you can actually do like statistical analysis to like how a spirit would behave and stuff like that. I think this is this I think the reason why, and I hate to just keep name dropping, but I think Sean Carroll had this thing that, well, the reason we don't expect religious texts to give us scientific information because they never do. And I think the reason why we don't expect religious claims to be measurable is because they never are, even though they should be. Because if you think that consciousness is supernatural, well, you can still do psychological tests and have statistical analysis of people's behavior, even though they say it's not natural, purely naturalistic. There's a supernatural element to it. So I'd say, absolutely, first of all, if supernatural things get discovered, they would not be pulled into the naturalistic world. We just accept there are two different worlds. And if we discover supernatural world, I see no reason why there shouldn't be like a statistical analysis, sciencey thing in which you can describe it, essentially.
There would have to be for Thomas's requirement to meet that.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like it again sort of boils down to the definition of supernatural. And I think that's kind of what we're perhaps dancing around, and where the line really is kind of blurred when you think about it.
Indeed. David, any last words?
Not particularly. What was the specific question?
Oh, the question, the request was an example of an event that you could observe, experience, that would raise your confidence in the supernatural and couldn't be easily ad hoc explained away.
Oh. Well, I think my position is much closer to what I understand is referred to as igtheism. So lack of being able to define the God in that case that we're trying to test means that it cannot be tested. It's an unfalsifiable claim. So I would need to define that supernatural in such a way that it could be tested. Now, it is supernatural because it is not natural, and natural things can be tested in repeatably, demonstrably verifiable ways. But I just don't have a specific definition of the supernatural. It seems like the ad hoc explanation is when people hand wave it as a supernatural. Does that make sense? If they can't define it within natural means, they say, "Oh, it was supernatural."
Okay.
Otherwise,
so
we would just call it natural.
Supernatural becomes people's default for anything they can't explain.
I reckon I am making
Natural
that claim.
with gaps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you define it by what it isn't. You're saying it's not natural, but you're not saying what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So if we can define it as something that is something, whatever that may be, whatever that word may be, however it is defined, natural things would be defined by, you can keep going down into quarks and whatever. But I just wouldn't know. So the question is, how do we define the supernatural in such a fundamental building block sort of way?
Okay. I'm going to write my science fiction version as somebody comes up with a device that violates conservation of mass energy. It's a perpetual motion device, and they start reproducing it, and it's testable by everybody to determine that there's no energy going up, there's energy coming up, no energy going, whatever it is. A perpetual motion machine that actually passes the test, and you can buy one, and you can power your phone with it, or your car, or something like that. And it doesn't turn out to wind down like a nuclear thing, something like that. Somebody wants to make one of those. I would call that beyond physics, which is the minimum definition for me of supernatural. That's my epistemic bar at the very bottom. It has to defy physics. And that would defy physics for me. Now, maybe people would then just come to know that, well, this is the perpetual motion physics part, we just learn new physics. Still, that there's my minimum.
The indistinguishable from magic part, basically.
Yeah, and I'm not making a statement about whether or not there's a God behind that, or how it's done, or anything else.
Right.
I'm lowering my bar for what defines supernatural as low as I can, and that is to say beyond the natural. So conservation laws, break a conservation law, go for it.
Right.
In an independently verifiable, testable, conclusive, I can use statistics way. Yeah, the word beyond is the key to me too. Thank you everybody for showing up, and we will be here next Saturday at the same time, which is noon for me in Pacific time, and like 3 p.m. for Rosemary, I think, in over there, and it's the frickin' middle of the night for David. No, not quite. But we also have a midweek show of this nature that floats around, because we poll the available panelists and figure out what's convenient for them. Screw the audience. Anyway, so we will be announcing that as that comes up. We also have SE review shows that come out of this same group of people. But in any case, thank you all. Enjoyed having you. Talk to you
Good fun.